Hi guys. Those of you who saw my last video know that I was invited to get a VIP look at a piece of marijuana legalization legislation that should be filed in the Missouri House sometime next week. I read over this bill and I'm making this video to introduce you all to the Cannabis Freedom Act. So there's a lot of stuff in the Cannabis Freedom Act that I think we will all be really excited about. But for now, I'm just going to go over the basics. Once the bill is actually filed, I'll try to do a more in-depth overview of it. But for now, let's just stick to the basics. The most important thing is that the Cannabis Freedom Act removes marijuana from Missouri's list of controlled substances. That means marijuana will no longer be considered a controlled substance here in Missouri. So the second most important thing about the Cannabis Freedom Act is that it gives us all the right to share. So I am particularly proud of this because I actually wrote the piece of language that is included in the Cannabis Freedom Act that enables us to share. So if this act ultimately becomes law, anyone who is 21 years of age or older or a medical patient can legally share marijuana seeds, flower, extracts, concentrates, or any other part of the plant with anyone else who is legally allowed to consume cannabis. So personal use cultivation is another detail that is addressed by the Cannabis Freedom Act. Under the act, anyone who is 21 years of age or older can grow up to 12 flowering plants without any kind of special authorization or license. And there is no limit on plants in the vegetative stage. This means that anyone who wants to utilize a sea of green type grow can do so without any concern as long as they do not exceed 12 flowering plants at any given time. If you want to grow more than 12 flowering plants, you just have to get a business license. But as long as you stay under that 12 flowering plant limit, you do not need any special authorization, no licensing, and again, there is no limit on the number of plants in veg that you can have. Parents who use cannabis either medically or recreationally will finally be afforded protections under the Cannabis Freedom Act. The courts will no longer be allowed to use your cannabis use against you when deciding family court matters. That means that they cannot give you the stipulation that you are required to stop using cannabis if you want your children back. They cannot use that against you for custody or parenting plan or visitation. You are considered an equal citizen with equal protections, even if you use cannabis. And on that note, individuals who are on supervision with probation and parole will also be allowed to continue using marijuana. So under the Cannabis Freedom Act, it's anyone who is on supervision is legally entitled to use marijuana. I know this is a big deal for a lot of people who are on supervision. They have posted so many times saying that their parole officer, their probation officer won't let them use medical marijuana. And under the Cannabis Freedom Act, that will no longer be an issue. You will be legally entitled to use marijuana if that is what you should choose to do. So if you have a cannabis-related crime on your criminal record, you will be able to apply to have that crime expunged. Anyone who is currently serving a sentence in jail or in prison for a nonviolent cannabis-related crime will be entitled to expungement and immediate release. So because the Cannabis Freedom Act could be on the books as early as August 28th, of this year, that means there is a very good chance that people who are currently in prison or jail serving sentences for cannabis-related crimes could be released by Christmas. So that is an awesome thing to consider, that not only could the Cannabis Freedom Act eliminate prohibition and prohibition for us, but people who are suffering in prison and in jail right now for crimes that should not have been considered crimes could spend the holidays this year with their families. That is something that we all want to see. We need to make that happen. Cannabis consumption in public is also addressed by the Cannabis Freedom Act. Smoking in public will no longer be illegal. Basically, if you are in an area that allows cigarette smoking, you will be allowed to also smoke marijuana. And on that note, as far as consumption goes, the Cannabis Freedom Act also creates the ability to have a hospitality business. So we're talking about smoking lounges and catering businesses, which means that if I host an event, I can hire a caterer to bring marijuana infused edibles to that event. Cannabis related businesses will be an open market and accessible to everyone. Unlike Legal Missouri 2022 that puts license caps in place and has astronomical application fees for cannabis business licenses without any guarantee that you're going to get one, the Cannabis Freedom Act instead makes licensing affordable. So they will use the same licensing structure that is currently in place for Missouri's hemp program. And on top of that, there are no license caps, and anyone who has the ID requirements that are necessary to open a bank account can apply for a business license. Okay, so it is super simple. It is a true open market, equal access type system. And another big deal is that having a felony will not automatically disqualify you from having a marijuana business, unlike how it is currently set up under our medical program and under Legal Missouri 2022. So right now, if you are a felon, you are disqualified from entering the cannabis business market, which cuts out an entire group of people who would benefit from having fair access to this market. But under the Cannabis Freedom Act, having a felony does not automatically disqualify you. You can still apply for a cannabis business license, and you can be granted a cannabis business license. So for those who were screwed out of the non-refundable application fees under the medical marijuana program, if you applied for a business license and were denied, you are eligible for a tax credit under the Cannabis Freedom Act. So anyone who lost that $7,000, that $10,000 can apply for a tax credit to help recover some of that cost. And because the Cannabis Freedom Act does not have these insane license requirements like our current program or Legal Missouri 2022, after you've gotten that tax credit, you can turn around and apply for a license under the Cannabis Freedom Act and actually get that license and start making your money back. So that covers the basic details of the Cannabis Freedom Act. It is an amazing piece of legislation, and if it passes, we will see an end to prohibition here in Missouri. But this brings me to my final point, and that is, how can we make this a reality? So there are 163 state representatives, 34 senators, and 1 governor standing in the way of ending prohibition here in our state. We need to somehow convince 197 people, 196, because we know that Representative Ron Hicks is going to vote for it. We need to convince 196 people to end prohibition. Convincing them to do that is not going to be as hard as you may think, because 2022 is an election year. So right now, you have everything that you need to convince these people to end prohibition. Ending prohibition is not up to them, it is up to you. It is in our hands, it is in our control. But it's not going to happen if we don't step up and do something. For prohibition to end, we have to tell all of our legislators that if they do not vote yes to the Cannabis Freedom Act, we are voting them out of office. So that means you have to send emails. You have to reach out and contact these people. So if you look at the description above this video, there is a link to a form. I need you to fill that out. I need you to like this video, to share the video, and to join the group Show Me Canna Freedom. That way, when I go down to Jefferson City and I talk to our representatives and our senators about ending prohibition, I can show them numbers. I can show them, look, this is how many people want prohibition to end. This is how many people are going to vote you out of office if you don't do what we ask. I understand not everybody has time to go down to Jefferson City. That's fine. I will go down there on your behalf. But I can't do that if I cannot show that you are standing on the side of ending prohibition. Okay, so if you want to see the Cannabis Freedom Act pass, that is what I need you to do. Fill out that form, like and share the video, and join the group Show Me Canna Freedom. We finally have the opportunity to do this. We can end prohibition this year. In 6.5 months, prohibition could be over in our state. We have an opportunity to make history, but only if you guys send the emails. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will post another video in more detail whenever the Cannabis Freedom Act is officially filed. And I am super excited that this is something that could potentially happen. And I'm just hoping and praying that all of you who are watching will do what I am asking you to do and reach out to your legislators and make this happen. Guys, this is in our control this time, but not if we don't move. So, all right, guys, thanks. I'll keep y'all posted. Bye.